Welcome to Pursuing the Muse. I'm Tom Compton. This episode we're featuring jazz guitar virtuoso Tim Fitzgerald. Tim and I go way back, so I can vouch for the fact that his journey is incredible. He transitioned from studying physics to music mastery, learning the rules and how to break them from Barry Harris and Rodney Jones. Tim's now a scholar of Wes Montgomery and has released the acclaimed Full House album, which reimagines Wes's iconic solos. Stay tuned for an inspiring conversation. Tom Compton here on Pursuing the Muse. This week we are fortunate to have jazz guitar great Tim Fitzgerald. How are you doing today?
Oh, great, Tom. This is so fun. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I will do a full disclosure that I am very respectful of how talented you are, but at the
Yes.
same time I have the advantage of being pretty comfortable because I've known you since high school, and I know you're
Yes.
I know you're a cool guy with a great sense of humor, which makes interviewing you
Oh,
a
great.
pleasure.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Oh,
Yeah.
it's great. I've learned a lot lately about trying not to be funny. That's the new thing that I've learned.
Right, yeah, that's what they teach you at improv class. Just don't try to be funny. That's
This is,
one.
I see, I didn't know this. I had
Mm.
no idea. And so here's the thing. Sometimes I'll be funny and if it's going well and I'm really enjoying it. And then I'll try and everything goes to hell. And then then you get the bad reputation. This is the not funny guy. And so, and I mentioned this there were a couple improv teachers who came to a gig the other day at the showcase, the jazz showcase here in Chicago. And I said to them, like, I'm improv teachers. I'm like, oh, listen, this thing happens to me where I'm really enjoying it, but I'll try and just it goes to hell. And they were like, just like you said, they said, rule one is don't try. It blew my mind. I had no idea. This is literally like a month ago. So I just
Nice.
learned this.
You are ready for improv class, my man.
Well, they say when the student's ready, the teacher appears or something like that. I don't know if I'm going to go do improv class, but I'm much less. I'm trying now on jokes and things. I've never been a good joke teller.
Right.
So,
Well, you have a drummer with you who can help with rim shots as
oh God,
necessary.
yes. That's, that's great.
You just point. If he doesn't catch it as a joke, you gotta work up like a cue, like a point.
Isn't that
And then
So, I know we're gonna get into a lot of stuff, I'm starting tangents. So I did one gig with Bowser from Sha Na Na years ago, and when he was, what because we were a sub band, and first thing he said to us, the first thing he said, "No rim shots." That's
right out of the gate. Right out of the gate. Let's get one thing straight here, people.
no rim shots. And I was
And
like,
then
"Okay, you." Yeah.
and then the drummer should have done a rim shot right there.
Oh god, that would have been great. Or I do like there's some crazy gliss on the guitar. That
Pull
kept
out
me
a
that'd be great.
pull out a slide whistle.
Yeah. He was really funny, actually. Yeah. John Bauman. Anyway,
Yeah.
yes, I know, we're probably
w-
not here to talk so much about Shannon now,
No, really, this is a Shana centric podcast, so this is perfect.
meant to be synchronicity right there, or serendipity.
Pursuing the one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. That's the name of
Well,
the.
I'm a little bit of trouble 'cause I think he's the only guy I can name from Shannon Na, so
Oh,
I
come
might.
on. Nobody can name the guys from Shana. I mean
Okay, good.
Bowser, sure, Bowser, yes,
Yeah, Barzer, he's the one.
but right,
I think he
and
went to
he's
Juilliard.
really
Is that possible? I think he did. I think that was part of the show that he was
well.
talking about that.
We'll see if my fact check team will
Thank you.
verify that. We'll
It's
put
good.
it
I'm
in the
really
show
glad
notes.
you have that team
Mhm.
in the show notes.
Right.
Yeah, good.
All right, so what's cool is we were in high school together, we had an English class, and you kept me sane, uh,
Oh, yeah.
so but then it was 35 years until I saw you again about a year ago.
Incredible. Yeah.
Saw you at a show, brought my son, who is a aspiring jazz guitar player himself. It's really probably his brush with greatness moment up to this point
Come
in his
on.
life.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Too much.
so let's for myself and for everybody else, let's get caught up on those 35 years.
Okay, good. Let's do that.
We graduated from high school. We high-fived each other in our cap and gowns, and then where did Tim Fitzgerald go from Chicago Suburban High School?
Went east. I went to Princeton and uh, was not studying music because, as you know, as much as I loved music and as obsessed as I was with music, and we talked about it so much, I was in a huge extended blues phase where I was studying every blues man I could, particularly country blues, Delta blues, Eastern Seaboard, everybody,
Yes,
all the blues men that I could possibly find and love and study.
I
I was
remember.
not playing music, right? I mean, I was trying to teach myself how to play just by listening but I wasn't doing I was not very good. I was strumming guitar, strumming Cat Stevens songs and Paul Simon songs and studying blues, but I couldn't crack the code at all as much as I loved it, as I just loved it. And I thought I had missed the boat on music, strangely. It's like, well, I love it so much, but I didn't start when I was 4.
Right, right.
Oh,
Those prodigies. They're
yeah.
like,
So,
yeah,
and there's that. It's like, and I also had this idea that, well, everyone loves music as much as I do, as much as you and I did. I figured everyone loved music that much, but everyone just puts it aside and goes ahead and does something else.
yeah.
And Princeton was, I mean, there are a lot of great things about Princeton, but it wasn't what I wanted to do at all. And
Mhm.
finally, when I was there, it's like, yeah, I mean, I remember I was supposed to study physics, and I remember, I had I don't even know his name, but he was a famous young astrophysicist was my advisor. And I remember like the first day in
Wasn't
the
Stephen
lab,
Hawking, was it?
I would know it. I'm not that old.
Sorry, I'm not
God,
sorry, I'm not gonna derail. I'm sorry.
no, it's great. Yeah. Stephen Hawking, he was a TA. It was, yeah. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who it was. But I just remember being in that lab. And of course, it was like, I think it was like general lab introduction. So there were microscopes and the other students they were bugging out. They just loved it so much. They couldn't, and of course, the resources at a place like that, the equipment was incredible. But all I could think, I just wasn't interested anymore. It was like, that's enough. And I was actually, we were just talking before we started recording here. We're talking a little bit about science. You know, it wasn't my gift. I was a very good writer, which is, one reason that English class that we shared was so important to me. And but as far as the math and the science, I kind of had to muscle that. And so I muscled it and I thought maybe I would be like a writer for Discover magazine or something. It's like, okay, maybe I can somehow do what I'm good at somehow with and in the science context. But when I got there, I was just like, "Ugh, enough. I just can't fake it anymore. I can't do that." And and there's a he ended up coming back to Chicago and started waiting tables actually and taking guitar lessons and made my way back out to Princeton to be with my girlfriend at the time. Continued taking class now up in New York. She and I broke up, but I loved the classes, and I stayed and I moved up. Found a great place on the Upper West Side near to the school where I was going. And boy, it just what a change, and that was a much better path for me.
Cool.
And I did that program at that little school and ended up connecting with and outside of school, ended up connecting with, 2 really important teachers to me who each changed my life in a different way. Barry Harris, the bebop piano player who not only did he play on things like the Sidewinder, but he was codifying kind of quote unquote rules of bebop, and he was so great at explaining them and creating exercises and sharing them. I took his class, changed my life. Just because I'd been looking for those sounds for so many years. I just couldn't. I would transcribe. I was transcribing West. I was transcribing Charlie Parker, but I couldn't quite make sense of it. And then Barry really just opened that up for me.
Well,
And
where
then
was Barry teaching? Was that through a school or
ah,
just was his own little thing?
it was his own thing. It's really interesting. He had so what I found him, he was teaching at I forget what street it is, 47th. There was a row of music stores,
Hmm.
like saxophone shops, guitar stores, somewhere in the 40s there. I should know this, but it's I've forgotten. And he just rented the place once a week, and you could go. Barry taught all night. He would start with, if I remember it correctly, he would start with a piano class for pianists. Then he would do a singer's class, and then he would do all instruments for improvisation. And that's the one I would go to. But you could go to any. You could just go and stay. And of course, now with hindsight, I should have just gone. It's Barry. Oh my God, hear him teach
Yeah.
as much as I could. I should have stayed all night, or I should have gone early. But I would just go for the improv class. That's when guitar players were supposed to go.
Mhm.
And it would be anywhere from I don't even know, maybe somewhere between 20, 30, 40 of us in the room. And it was always there was no syllabus or anything. He based the lessons on this experience level of the people in the room, and it was all oral tradition. He would sing to us. We'd build solos together. That he'd sing exercises. We'd do it back. Oh, it was an amazing experience. Jimmy Lovelace,
Wow.
the great drummer who played with Wes Montgomery, was just there on the drum kit helping him teach. Like Barry would, because he would sing lines to us, and Lovelace would keep time. Amazing.
Hmm.
It's like Jimmy Lovelace is sitting there keeping time while Barry Harris is teaching.
Yeah, it's like,
And I
"Pinch me. How did I stumble into this?"
oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. And also, because we talk about the cost of college in general, and of course, all these kids spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for their jazz degrees. Barry Harris's class was and I don't quite know how this worked. I don't know if he got grants or what, but the first class that you went to get your little card was, I think, $20, and then after that, it was $7 per class, pay
Oh
as
my
you
gosh.
want,
Oh,
for
wow.
the best information and the
Right,
best
right.
teaching of that style. And it wasn't a private lesson, it was a group class, but oh my god.
That's a good
It was
value right there.
yes. And, if you wanna know a quick Jimmy Lovelace story, he was so cool, like, he always, he would wear a black suit, and he would have a black hat, a cap kind of, like,
Like a
not a baseball cap, but like
fedora
like a
thing?
no, smaller, no brim,
Okay.
brimless hat, and, he had on the heads on the drum were black, and he had sticks that were coated in black, just so cool, right? And I remember one day I showed up, and I looked over and I saw Lovelace, and he had on a white suit and a white hat, and the heads on the drum were white, and the sticks were white coated. It was like, "Oh, he made the shift." He just
Yes. Yeah,
I
see
love this guy. I didn't know him personally at all, but it's just like, wow, that's the epitome of cool to me. Just so
right.
put together and swinging and amazing.
Exudes coolness.
He really did. And but Barry, oh man, Barry, and he'd be prickly at times. He'd yell at us if we weren't getting it quickly. And I trust me, I get it. When you're teaching, especially a big group, and um, he's just really trying to get us somewhere. And so, but he was also just, I mean, in his heart, just very kind and incredibly giving to share this information with us.
Wow.
And
That
then yeah,
that's
it
amazing.
was it was great. And then the other man who I'm still in touch with, who is super important to me as well, is Rodney Jones. And
Okay.
Rodney, he's on so many records that you might not even know. Because he's a jazz great for sure, but he also did all these you know commercial recordings over the years. He was the Showtime at the Apollo drummer for all those years, or the Rosie O'Donnell show, and with 50,000 records. But he also was Dizzy Gillespie and music director for Lena Horne, and he was teaching at the time at Manhattan School of Music, a very serious program, and eventually he moved to Juilliard. But for me, he was just, he just opened his he's let me come study with him. And the first thing I said to him when I got it was he was in Morningside Heights, just south of Harlem, and I was like, "Oh, well, I think I was calling him Rodney, not Mr. Jones." I was like, "Rodney, thank you for, taking me on here. Let me come in. I'm" 'cause I certainly wasn't ready, quote unquote, "ready" to study with a great. And he said, when I met him early, he said, "When the student's ready, the teacher appears." And I was like, "Okay, there it
There you
is.
go.
There it is. Thank you." And he really changed my life. And we're in touch now today. He's still teaching actively and playing so great. I mean, better than ever. Yeah, he's a really special guy to me.
See, proud of what you've accomplished?
He's incredibly supportive. Yeah. So
Nice.
I don't know if proud is the right word. I mean, I don't want to speak for his feelings, but he's really, yeah, he's so supportive. I hope he's proud. I hope to make him proud
Right.
because yeah, it's because it's like this is it's some serious stuff. What he puts out there,
Right. You're like
I
Plato
take
to
yeah,
his Socrates.
that's right. There's a kind of an incredible scene in The Good Place. Did you see this TV show?
No.
Oh, I love it so much. And at one point, he's teaching philosophy, and at one point, the student said, "Yeah, oh, who left Plato and who died and left Plato in charge?" You know, it's like Socrates.
Socrates.
It's great, but it's
That's
much
that
better
is a good
delivery
one.
than that.
Yeah. No, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
that's a good one.
it was good. Yeah, I mean, the show's great. If you don't know that, I love it. If you have any, yeah, if you like good things, you should watch that show.
Okay.
How's
Well,
that? How's that for an endorsement?
we'll put that in the show notes too.
Okay.
So,
Top
how did Barry and Rodney differ as teachers?
Oh my god, what a great question. So, I would say very broadly, Barry taught me the rules, and Rodney taught me how to break them, and
Awesome.
continues to teach me. Yeah, because Rodney is not a rules guy, you know? He is sounds, and, when he's Coltrane, he's exploring the universe with his music and with other things. He's a really, really spiritual, great guy. And, and Barry was pushing the limits all the time as well, but always within the bebop context,
Mm,
so swinging. Um, it's maybe a narrower slice of this great Black American music was Barry. He's a real bebop specialist, whereas here's Rodney who played with, I I I don't know what his biggest gig was in terms of, non-jazz. I know he was offered one of the Michael Jackson tours,
mm.
but it's like that's the level. So he's going from from Michael Jackson through Dizzy Gillespie, so it's
Right.
much broader, but he's also interested in a broader thing. Like, he's not really interested in specialty the way, though he can play all the styles like a monster, but he's not interested in staying within any style. I mean, he will play a gig, when he played you're playing with Bobby Blue Bland, that's not the time to explore the universe, that's the time to, play great blues, which is, in a sense, exploring the universe, but you know what I mean, it's not time to break music down,
Right, right.
it's time, you gotta play at the gig.
Mhm.
And Barry was just, quintessential bebop, and yeah, but Rodney's all about, let's break down those walls and see where it goes.
So at this point, you are also an educator. Do you feel like you're taking any of the stuff they gave to you and now using it with young aspiring musicians?
Oh my god, 100%. Yes, I'm a middleman between this. Yeah, I'm so happy to be a part of the tradition in any way and to share it. Yes, absolutely. I teach. So Barry had all these great exercises that he came up with for learning bebop and learning how to, just to nerd out for a second, but among other things, how to working with the chord tones, keeping the chord tones aligned, and all these things, and or shortening and expanding lines with chromatics. And so I take all those exercises that he taught and I put them on guitar. And I'm not the first to put it on guitar, but that's yeah, it's for guitar, for my guitar students, absolutely.
You're not the
Barry
first,
Harris
but
stuff.
you are the best.
Okay, that's can I quote you on that?
Yeah, put that on your website.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, maybe a tattoo, actually. That's pretty good. I like that. And, and then, yes, I mean, then Rodney, one of the great things about Rodney's teaching is that, you know, someone will come in and say, "How does this work?" Or something like that, or "What do you think of this?" Rodney was always like, "Let's see,
Mm,
let's do it. Let's do
nice.
it. Let's see. Hey, can I play this over this over the? Can I play this kind of sound over this kind of chord? Let's do it. Let's find out."
Yeah,
He says it's not theoretical, right? He doesn't want to sit there and take out a blackboard and let's go through, which is good. That there's a value to that too.
right.
And he'll do that. Need to be. I'll do that if I need be. It's also, this whole thing about doing what the student needs. You can have a plan, and of course, you need to have a plan for. Sometimes you need a syllabus. You can't just pick up when they want
Right,
a syllabus. You just can't say, "Well, I'm going to do what the student needs on that given day," and then submit that. No, you need to have a whole program, right?
right, yeah.
But you gotta be willing to in this kind of music, maybe all music, I don't know, but it's certainly in this kind of music, you need to be able to let go of that plan, and it's like, "Oh, the student needs this, let's do that." And according to the sounds, following the sounds. So, yes, they're both oh my god, they're both with me hugely, hugely. I'm always, always. And, and of course, there's my own experience too, which goes in there, especially for me as a late starter. There's a little bit of different perspective there than I
Mhm,
think either of them had in terms of that. I was bad for a long time, and I remember it acutely. I don't Rodney was never bad, I think he started playing with Dizzy Gillespie when he was 17 or something, 17 or 18. So, he didn't really have a long period of struggling. I'm not saying as a human being or, working, putting in the work, I'm just saying, but he was good at a young age.
yes.
And so sometimes for some of my students, it's nice for them to have that perspective coming from me of like, yeah, when I was your age, I couldn't do that either.
Yeah,
And now I can. And here's how I got there.
yeah, that is
Yeah,
encouraging.
I hope so.
Yeah. So, it's odd that, for somebody who's known as the Wes Montgomery guy, we're 20 minutes into this, and we haven't even talked about Wes Montgomery yet.
Oh my
So
gosh.
you've been with Barry and Rodney. How did, Wes enter the picture for you?
Well, talk about little coincidences and serendipity. There's actually a lot of serendipity in particular with Rodney and Wes Montgomery. So I don't know if will our listeners know who Wes Montgomery is?
I think so. I mean, he's a jazz legend, so, I
Oh
mean,
yes.
it's interesting because my son was looking through my old CDs and going even way back. I have like Wes Montgomery's greatest hits, and he picked it up. He's like, "Oh, look at that! You got a,"
Wow.
he knows you. He's like, "Oh, look, Tim would be happy. You have this Wes Montgomery."
Look
But
at you.
the
Did you know
weird
Wes back in the day when I knew you? Sorry to interrupt, Tom. Did you when we were friends back a million years ago? Did you already know about Wes?
not
Because I sure didn't.
not in high school, but in
Mm.
college, I would be up at 1 in the morning and like a TV commercial would come on and say, "For $10, you can have these 5 classic jazz CDs." And
Yes.
so that's kinda how I got into jazz,
Oh, that's great. I didn't
late
know
night
that.
late night infomercials. So at one point, I get the Wes Montgomery greatest hits, but what's weird is I think for the pedestrian level, like, greatest hits, Wes Montgomery is like him covering "Yesterday" or,
Right.
"Georgia on My Mind."
Gotcha. Right.
It
The CTI period, the Creed Taylor stuff.
it's not the deep cuts that you
Mhm.
have mined more. So,
Mhm.
it like, even approaching your approach to Wes Montgomery was eye-opening to me because,
Ooh.
he's got that amazing style with the octaves and the chords,
Oh, yeah.
but it's like, uh, what Eleanor Rigby, and it's like but there's so much more, and you've opened my eyes up to it.
What's that's so interesting because those I mean, it's worth a discussion, that period of Wes. And remember also, he even when he was recording those, so the producer with for that was Creed Taylor for CTI, and Wes made Wes, who had 6 kids when he was first signed and had another, he was signed quite late actually, right? I don't think he started recording till about 30, which for back then, was very late. I don't know if you know the story that the great Cannonball Adderley was coming through Indianapolis and heard Wes at one of his steady gigs at a place called the Missile Room. And he heard him and immediately, like in the middle of the night, called Orrin Keep News, the producer at Riverside, said, "Yeah, we got somebody. You have to sign."
Mm.
And I think Wes may have been on. There's a little bit of recording of him beforehand, but that was the breakthrough of those records on the beginning of those records on Riverside. And this small group just absolutely changed the course of jazz guitar. Well, at least for many of us listening to him.
Yeah.
Um, and then in a later period, he always was with the small groups, but in a later period, he went over to, CTI, and they made these very commercial records where there was not a whole lot of improvisation from Wes, although what was there was incredible. Like, so instead of playing, multiple courses, 10, 12 courses, 15 courses of a blues that'll change your life, instead, he might play 8 bars or something, and
Hmm.
they're just absolutely majestic 8 bars
Yeah.
as part of this big arrangement and those records sold like crazy and they made him money. They made him money for his family. And there's some of course they're panned by critics, but they sold like crazy. And Wes, there's some great, really nice quotes from Wes talking about, I don't know why people don't like these because the playing is really good.
Yeah.
People meaning the critics. People loved the record. They loved the records. And I get it because he's really playing beautifully. It's very different, and it's commercial. It's commercial as hell,
Hmm.
but boy, the playing is special. So, even with sometimes a very cheesy arrangement around him, sometimes a nice arrangement, um, and it was actually really important in the development of it's kind of, there was no smooth jazz to speak of at that point, right? And the very commercial jazz, like, quite like that. So he was a very early person for that. But yes, I like the majority of us, it's the small group stuff, not the CTI stuff, the stuff that's on Riverside and Verve. That's the stuff that really, really captures our hearts.
Right. Right.
Um, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but did you ever see that Wes? Well, there's more, but when we were young, there was only one Wes video out there. Have we talked about this Wes video?
I don't think so, but I think I know the video you're talking about, the
Yes.
VHS tape that you transcribed.
Yeah. Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
So, that's it exactly. So Wes did 1 European tour. He was apparently deathly afraid to fly. I
Oh,
don't know if they flew over. I assume they flew over, but only once in '65, he went to Europe, and he played for a TV show, which is really great show called, Jazz 625. And if
yeah.
and, oh, I'm blanking on the name of the host right now, but, they had so many jazz greats come through that TV show in the BBC TV. And Wes played with Jimmy Lovelace from the Barry Harris class. Took his band, or it was actually a band for that tour that his agent had put together. And they got this. It was like 35 minutes, and that's all we had of video of Wes. And I remember still before I had moved back east, I was still here in Chicago, and I got my hands on that videotape. And it was like, you know how it is back then where videotapes were passed around and redubbed,
Oh, yeah.
and there's, fuzzy,
Yeah.
and I have to say it was absolutely life-changing to see Wes not only play so beautifully, play with such verve and panache and badassery, but also just warm vibe, smiling. He'd play something so badass and then look over at, Harold Mabern and say, "Hey, did you hear that?" Or just like there was something
Nonchalant,
that's
yeah.
nonchalant, effortless, flowing. I mean, Wes was so tapped into something bigger. Doesn't say bigger, just tapped into something bigger. That flow state, I mean, so the rhythms, the feel, the harmony is incredible. I mean, just it's spectacular, and I fell in love with his music partly I had, my first record was actually a double record of The Incredible Jazz Guitar of Wes and So Much Guitar. And those 2 records, I loved them top to bottom, listened all the time. But when I saw the video, I was like, "Okay, I'm done. This is the guy. This is the
Yeah.
best thing I've ever seen."
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's what launched. Now, talk about serendipity. Yes, fact that when I finally made it to Barry Harris's class, that Jimmy Lovelace is sitting in the corner
Yeah.
keeping time, you
That
know,
jaw-dropping.
from jaw-dropping. But even more, serendipitous, when I finally did get to study with Rodney, um, first of all, Rodney's the one who kind of, I shouldn't say kind of, who really opened up the physical approach of Wes Montgomery for me, like, because and this is maybe a bigger subject or an interesting subject as well, but, because guitar, as you know, and as some of our listeners will know, is a redundant instrument, right? We have a lot of the same notes in different places,
You can say that
and
again.
exactly, and the way you play them and the ones you choose really affect the phrasing, right? You can even you staying tightly in position, or you can move very, you know, horizontally or whatever would be vertically up and down the neck, or some combination both. And
Mhm.
and the picking, is it downstrokes? Is it alternating? Is it what is it? What are you doing? Are you using your fingers? Are you using your thumb? And Wes's physicality is very tied to the phrasing, this amazing, perfect swinging phrasing. So, um, Rodney's the one who just opened my mind to that. It's like, actually, this is how Wes physically approached the guitar, and it was like just mind blowing. So I owe so much to Rodney about understand to for helping me understand Wes. But here's more serendipitous. Later, we were talking. It turns out Rodney's the one who went to the BBC to get that thing released
Ooh.
because he had heard through the I don't know, through the grapevine that there was something in the can at, the BBC of West, and he went and on one of his tours and went to the office, and he connected them somehow with Serene, Wes's, widow, and so Rodney's the one who got that videotape into the world,
Oh, that's so cool.
and then I end up studying with him, he shows me, and then, of course, because it's video, you can actually see Wes's physical approach. And that's what I ended up transcribing and putting into the book. But and at this point, I had no idea that Rodney was the one who had opened up to the world,
Yeah, that's
all
amazing.
these little things, just all the threads that intertwine. We don't realize how intertwined things are until we do. If we're
Right,
lucky, we get to see how intertwined things can be.
right. Yeah, that's profound.
It was really profound for me. Yeah, he's a
So,
special guy, Rodney Jones. Yeah, and
when you're
Wes.
transcribing, are you thinking what are you just transcribing, like, out of sheer joy to transcribe, or are you, like, thinking, "Maybe I can publish this," or was there a purpose when you're transcribing, or was it just happening?
It's gonna be all of the above. I remember I was talking about this video. I was like, "Oh, this incredible video." And I made some little melancholy comment, like just a toss away comment. And I was like, "Oh yeah, it's too bad no one's ever made that into a book or anything. It's so the playing's so great." And I heard myself say that. It's like, okay, obviously I have to do that.
Yeah.
So when I started transcribing that very seriously, because I'd tried to transcribe it over the years when I was younger. It was quite hard, when you hit the rewind on the VHS
Yeah,
player.
right, right.
And it goes back like
That
13
noise.
seconds.
Yeah.
Oh god, but even just, like, you hear a phrase, you wanna rewind it, you can't just well, yeah, it was really hard back then to transcribe from video, so, but then oh god, somewhere around 2000, that's when I was like, I made that little I had that thought, it's like, I wish someone had transcribed it, it's like, "Oh, yeah, obviously, I have to I'm gonna do it." So, yes, I did think about publishing it right away, like, as soon as I got the idea because I thought it should be out there, it's like, "Oh, I'm sad that this is not out there. Oh, wait a second, I can do it." So, as soon as I started transcribing it, yeah, it was like, "Yeah, share it, put it out there," that was definitely part of it. But what you just said, the sheer joy of transcribing, that's yeah, that's definitely there because one, to play along with something that I've listened to for so many years and loved, and to be able to connect it's like a connection to the music and the tradition in a way that kind of reverberates really strongly with me. It was very joyful. It's like, "Oh, I got this," and I'm not playing it as well as Wes, of course, but even just to play along with him gives a certain feeling that's yeah, it's joy. It's joy. And then, as you say, you mentioned earlier mining. It's funny. It's an incredible opportunity to learn language. But learn this bebop language, or Wes would be bop or hard bop. Um, but just like yeah, it's an opportunity to learn so that you can do your own. You know, so there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of benefits that came from it, and spending all that time with that, I was education in and of itself. Rodney sort of set me up to understand it, and then it was time for me to do the work
Yeah.
and get in there. And
How
yeah,
long how long did it take to transcribe the 35 minutes of footage?
oh, it's a couple years. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a big project, and also because I didn't know any notation software at the time, so that was part of it. I had to learn, how to, because I didn't want to do it by hand. I wanted a polished, professional looking notation.
Right.
So I had to learn the software, and then I would transcribe it, and I would, get through the whole thing, and then I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go through it again." I'd go through it again, after let's say a year or something. I spent a year, and then it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go through it again." And just the process of doing that for a year made my ears better, so I'd go through it again, and it'd be a little better because by the time I got to the end, I was a better transcriber. And so
Yeah.
I'd do the whole thing again. Okay, hey, I wonder if I should do that again because I'm probably better now than I was 3 months ago. So I just kept doing it over and over, and there'd be little improvements here and there over the years, over the course of over the months. And finally, I just had to say, "Okay, this is because like, you could keep rewriting a book
Right.
forever, really, and
Right.
improving on it. But finally, after about 2 years, I'm like, okay, this is good. And I sent it to some people for can you look at this? And they're like, yeah, it's good. So
Nice.
it's
It's good to
yeah,
get
so
good to get the feedback when you're done that people looking at it are like, "Yeah."
oh yeah,
Not like,
exactly.
"Go back to the woodshed one more time."
And it's tempting. I mean, the same thing happened with the record too. It's like how many how many times can I rework these arrangements? Well, a lot. I can
Mhm,
keep getting
mhm.
better. I mean, it's It's funny with records is the whole thing about, especially in the jazz world, one way to look at a record is it's a snapshot of where you are on that day, you know.
Sure.
That's good. That's a less pressure filled as opposed to like this is the however many years of work going to this record.
Yeah. This
It's
is your
just a
legacy.
snapshot
Yeah.
of legacy. But of course I didn't take that attitude with the record and I just kept same thing, kept working it over and same thing as a player, I just kept getting better. I aspire to keep getting better all the time, practicing a lot. So it's like, well, if you always wait till you're the best you'll be, you'll never make the record until
Right.
you start declining, I suppose. You get to a certain age and maybe
Yeah.
your hands stop working. You're like, okay, I better record now before
Right.
before I can't play anymore.
Right.
But
Diminishing
yeah.
returns.
So I'm sorry.
Diminishing returns going.
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yes, and
So
diminishing skills.
so how did, the it sounds like the transcription book eventually parlayed into the album, which is Full House. Um,
Yes.
how did that wind up coming about?
Well, it was sort of it was similar in terms of like because the book got a lot of great response and got some you know, uh, this was just before social media. It came out just before the social media thing was big, so I never did a big push on it back then when it was released. But like in terms of that, I did never really advertise. But it got some awards and it sold a bunch, and I was like, and it made me better, So, but and then it was out for a little while, and it was like, God, I'd love to play some of this material because I was playing different versions of the material, inspired by like some of the same songs or some of the same language. And it was kind of like just a little bit of it was just one of those thoughts like, ooh, because okay, so Wes, you mentioned octaves and chords. One thing about Wes is he was famous, yes, for his octave solos. He would often start with single notes. So one solo, he'd start with single notes, then he would transition into octaves, and then he would transition into chords. It was sort of a formula that he had for not every solo, but for a lot of his solos, he would do that. And there's a little bit of, how to say this, just increasing intensity as he did that. So, like, if he could take a 5-minute solo, and it's just over the course of those 5 minutes, just growing intensity and growing interest. It
Mm.
doesn't the notes turned to octaves, turned to chords. And those chords were really special, like really, really unique to Wes. No one had done it quite like that in ever since. And those chord solos are, especially when he mixed octaves and chord solos, but the chord solos in particular were very inspired by, it seemed, by some big band music. There's some big band language. Like you think about the horns, like a soloist would be soloing at a bassy band, and then all of a sudden the other horns would behind, accompany behind with, stabs, little hits, chord hits, or longer solos. And so I just kind of had the idea to like, well, if these things seem to be inspired by horns, why don't we take Wes's existing iconic chord solos that are really hard to play, actually, but super fun, and I arranged them for horns. So it's sort of like horns, the inspiration. Then I was on guitar, Wes's genius. Now let's
Right.
put those on horns.
It's like
So that
putting
was
it.
yeah, the
Well, I was
hook of
gonna
the
say it's
record.
like putting it in a different light.
Yeah, yeah, and horns. I mean, it was a great opportunity to work with horn players that I loved in Chicago too. So, and I'd never done that kind of arranging ever. So that was very much like and that took a long time. Things,
Yeah.
Tom, things are slow. I take a long time on things.
But once you get to the other end, man, it's worth it.
I hope so. I mean,
Yeah,
do we ever do we ever get there? Do we ever get to the other end? I don't know.
well, there's
Maybe
another
not.
journey to make when you finish, but
Yeah, yeah. It seems like a continuum to me. I don't know. It doesn't. I don't know if I've ever finished. I had to finish the book. I had to put it out. I had to finish the record. There had to be a end point where you finally say, "Yes, this is the one." But it doesn't feel like the end
mhm,
remotely, you
right.
know.
I mean,
But
is there a new obsession that you're working on, a new multi-year project, or I mean,
well, yeah. Well, a couple things. I mean, one is that I did want to do another record in the same vein as the first one with Full House. Actually named the band Full House.
mhm,
Because there's a Wes Montgomery record called for Full House, there's a song called Full House. Wes had 7 kids in his house. Coincidentally, I chose 7 people for the band and without even thinking of that exactly.
mhm,
We're a 7-piece band, Full House, Tim Fitzgerald's Full House. And that record, those arrangements did take, I mean, I s I did the first arrangement for that record 15 years before that record came out. So, it
mm,
was a long-term project. I was playing those arrangements for
yeah,
a long time before we finally
yeah,
recorded them. And
yeah, that
then there's enough material to do enough material. There's so much to do with Wes's playing that I really wanted to do one more, like, at least one more, but for sure one more record with similar lineup, similar instrumentation, similar concept. So
so
that's I d yeah.
how many arrangements did you cut down to what wound up being on Full House?
What do we have? 10, I think? 10. I think we've ended up doing 10.
Right,
Couple got cut that we recorded
okay.
just for space.
But how many arrangements do you have left over that you're spilling into another record that's
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think that's a great question. For sure, 1 or 2 were extra that we recorded, and then I've been doing some more.
okay.
So I am but it's the thing is I'm working this is how it goes, right? I'm gigging so much, especially with with my small group, with my trio, the trio that you've heard a few times,
Mhm.
which is just a much more, well, let's say less unwieldy band to book, you know, and
Except you
travel
gotta
with.
haul that massive Hammond B-3 around.
Yeah, isn't that something? So, the other night you heard us at Fitzgerald's. It was great to see you there, and, yeah, that's a house B3, right? And it's a lot of places. The Wednesday night gig at Le Piano, that's a house B3 again.
You gotta put that into the writer.
Oh my god, yeah.
You pick out the
So,
brown M&Ms, and there's gotta be a Hammond
that's
B3.
that's right. Then you know it's safe. Then you know it's safe for pyrotechnics.
Yes.
Uh, yeah, Tom actually has a Viscount organ that he brings around, which is, it's the brand that Joey D was, endorsing at the end. And it's
Mm.
supposed to be portable. It's still heavy, it's crazy heavy, and Tom is super strong, you know? He's got
Por
this whole, like, yeah. I don't know how he does it. He just
Portable is
uses
relative.
it really is. I mean, it's more portable than a B3, but, oh my he still needs a dolly, you
Sure.
know? And he's strong as hell. And I'm like, "Man." No, I'm
Walk in with a guitar case, whistling.
yes. Yes. I remember, oh god, when I was so young, when they want you get to try instruments and things. I remember just seeing, this when I was in Oak Park. Um, I remember seeing someone carrying in a flute case just to school, and I thought that was the coolest thing, just carry this little case. It
Mhm.
wasn't even about the sound of the flute, it was about the smallness of the case. It was like, "That
Right.
looks awesome."
It's very
Just a
portable.
ca Yeah, I love it.
My
That's
brother
what
played tuba, and he could only bring
dude,
home the mouthpiece to practice on because he
that's
could
what that makes sense. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Yeah, that probably wasn't annoying at all to hear the tuba mouthpiece all day or all night.
It's really formed my musical taste.
That's right. Yeah,
I
um,
hear a full tuba, it's too much. It's too much.
it is.
Just
Who
give
d
me
Yeah.
just give me the clapper sound of a plunger, and I'm happy.
Does this go for other instruments as well too? Do you just wanna hear like,
Yeah,
I don't know, do
yeah,
you wanna
yeah.
hear a keyboard, an unplugged keyboard, or
Right, we can
maybe for you
artificially recreate that now with a synthesizer.
probably can, or like instead of guitar, do you like to hear like a Guitar Hero plastic controller?
It's just the
Is
clicking.
that's your favorite sound?
Yes,
That's
brings me
pretty
back.
you're like, "Yes."
Ah, that'll be my music therapy when I'm in a nursing home. Just the
Guitar
clicking noise.
Hero.
Yeah.
Have you ever played it? Have you played that game?
I've played Rock Band, but,
Oh, Rock Band, okay. I've never played any
basically
of
the
those.
same thing.
They were all the rage, I don't know how many years ago, is it 20 years ago? I have no idea, but they seem to be everywhere, and then I don't know where that went. It looked really fun, but I don't know, we'll have to do that sometime.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I have the instruments in my crawl space, but we never take them out, so
do you really? Yeah, we should I mean,
yeah.
well, those are basically like timing games, right? Is that basically what they are?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, fun. That's important.
Yeah.
Super I mean, I'm probably guitars a real guitar is probably better than the Rock Band guitar, but
Right.
it still looks kinda fun.
You get the dopamine hit when you land on the note at the right time.
Yeah, that's okay, that sounds great.
Yeah.
We saw kids going, bonkers on those dance games in, Korea and Japan. They were
Yeah.
so good.
Oh, I
Just
bet.
feet flying around, just like I mean, it's fast and their feet are practically blurry as they're, like, tapping this stuff out.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. Anyway,
Yeah, dancing scares me. That's part of the reason I like to have an instrument. It's like
oh, that's funny. Have
I
you played in any dance bands? Where you watch people dance or
no, no.
okay. Yeah, it's pretty I don't know, it's really fun. I think, I mean, music and dance, right? They are tied together.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
you think about the West African drummers, they're all in my understanding, like, all the drummers are dancers and the dancers are drummers, in general, it's not they can do both.
yeah, that's cool if there's, like, some kinda spiritual crossover thing going on.
So I played in dance bands for so long, and, you watching people dance all the time, and you start to develop a little bit of an aesthetic for it, and of course, it's like, "Okay, this guy's a great dancer, these people are great dancers, no, these people are terrible," Not that you're
Mhm, mhm.
judging per se, you just have an aesthetic, you just notice it, it's not like,
Right.
"Oh, you're a bad person," but you're like, "Okay, look at this guy flopping around,
Yeah.
grabbing his right foot, bending his knee, grabbing his foot, and dancing on one foot,"
Yeah.
and then you see people dancing very soulfully, and I started taking some dance classes just, nothing remotely serious, but I'm like, "Okay, I've been watching people dance for 10 years. What am I doing? This is like I have to get in there." So,
Ooh,
and I'm not a good dancer by any means. I'm terrible bad dancer, but I do love it. I
right.
love it, especially when it's a class and it's like really it's not like, you go out to dance wherever, now like everyone takes out they wanna take out their phones and record. No, don't no. So just I'm just
Right,
feeling
right.
this music.
Be in
Let
a
me move around without recording.
Yeah, be in the moment.
Yeah, and class is made for that, it's really
Mhm.
like, there's no cameras.
Yeah.
Just have to find the right teacher and the right music that moves you, literally moves you, but that you feel.
Were you in any dance bands that use, like, a funky wah-wah kinda
Yeah.
dis
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it was great. I learned a lot. I was really because again, I wasn't playing in junior high and high school, and those are important years for developing time feel and all the things and getting used to playing in front of people,
Uh-huh.
and, those dance bands were really good for me because I mean, so many gigs, and it just becomes like, at the beginning, it was a bit, "Oh, I'm playing in front of people, I'm nervous," but you can get over that really quickly with enough, with enough gigs and also just the repetitions, we need so many repetitions, our heroes in the jazz world, among others, I'm sure, would be on the road all the time, just gigging, "Okay, hey, we're gonna be in St. Louis for 2 weeks, okay, and then after that, we go to Kansas City, and then we're gonna go to Chicago." It's like, you got your whole life, but that's so many, playing whatever, 5, 6 nights a week, sometimes more, and just that nothing beats doing the thing you want to do to get better at the thing,
Yeah,
I'm so, yeah, I was grateful for that, for sure, those dance bands,
cool.
I was pretty good with the wah, I like the wah a lot, I wasn't great with all the sounds, I never really dialed in delay very well. I should have gotten that better. Wah
Sure.
was good, delay
Sounds of
distortion
the
and tones are
70s.
okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
all those, cop TV show theme songs with the wow, wow, wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't think about that, of course.
like SWAT and yeah,
Oh, yeah, God, yeah, I love the wah.
yeah.
I kinda don't like setting everything up, though, like, the problem with the pedal board back then, and if
Oh, yeah.
one cable goes, it's like then your whole signal chain is messed up, and
Mhm.
I'm standing on stage, I'm kneeling over my pedal board trying to swap out cables and which one. It's like, ugh,
Right,
I
right.
really like I think my current setup, which is guitar into the amp,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah, and it works.
that's a yeah, I love it. I mean,
So,
there's a certain directness. I don't mean direct, recording direct. I just mean like just regular English direct, like just a certain presence of just being like, here's the sound, here it is. This is what I do.
yeah. I
I
heard
like
Jeff
that.
Beck was just, like, straight into the amp, and that's it.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
no effects. Because like, when he toured with Stevie Ray Vaughan, that one Fire and Fury tour,
Oh
Jeff
wow.
Beck was, like, looking at Stevie with all these walls of amps and pedal
Yeah.
boards, and Stevie's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, where's your stuff?" And he's like, "I just plug in." So,
No kidding, that's
yeah.
fantastic. Did you see that tour?
Yeah, oh, yeah, it was awesome. Good stuff.
Oh, I'm jealous.
I was
Man, that's
very
great.
the only disappointment was that they only did 1 encore song together, you know?
Oh, isn't that something?
Everybody
Okay.
everybody wants them to go for, like, a half hour for an encore, but they just did "Going
Mhm.
Down," and that was it. The Freddie King tune.
Yeah. One of the best encores, maybe the best encore I've ever seen programmed was, one of the times I saw Paul Simon. This would have been about God, it was a tour. I think when that was. I have it in my notes because for things like that, I like to keep the set list.
Mm,
And, let's say somewhere around 2010. And it
mm.
was a relatively short show with an incredibly long encore. It was brilliant,
Nice.
just
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
brilliant. The way he took because the encore itself, like, the show had a certain shape and narrative to it, and it ended, and of course, we wanted more, and they came out, and then the encore had a different but also really engaging narrative of ups and downs, and it felt very satisfying. I'm like, "Okay, that's." I wanna say he was 75 at the time, so that's how we could probably
Wow.
piece it back. But I was just like, "Man, that is some programming skill right there, that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he knew what to exactly how long to make each of those, the regular set, and then he knew exactly and I left feeling so satisfied. Like, that was like, somehow he just laid it out that it was like, we got so much of a bonus, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was
It
great. I'm
was
like,
a
"Yeah."
value add. So was he able
And
to
I knew.
honor the world music and the Garfunkel stuff at the
Oh,
same
yeah.
time? Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
because 'cause he's got those guys were all multi-instruments. I think everyone on that stage played multiple instruments.
Mhm.
Like, there's that guitar player who he'd pick up the saxophone, he'd go over the piano, he'd do, everyone's doing percussion. Yeah. There was just a lot of versatility, a lot of skill on that bandstand. And I know Paul Simons, there's real valid complaints sometimes about him. I've heard some things, right? I think we all heard some things about his but he's just a really important guy to me, and it was quite and also a transitional guy for me with jazz, like, looking at those early records,
Mhm.
Grady Tate, Bob
Yeah.
Cranshaw, they're on the records.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The Dixie Bears. amazing on rhyme and assignment. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Let me get to a thing where this podcast has been traditionally more songwriting oriented. And so about a year ago, my son, who is in high school and doing jazz guitar, was auditioning for the Illinois Music Educator Association band. And he brought home the pieces he had to learn. And one of them was written by Tim Fitzgerald.
No, that's so great. Serendipitous.
So how do you I mean, a song is a cool entity, and you're coming at it from so many different angles. You know, you're writing that, you're arranging Wes Montgomery, you're building beds for improvisation sometimes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well said.
from your perspective, how do you see those things interweaving and relating to each other?
On the from the big picture is it's all part of the same language. And the transcribing is absolutely learning the language. It's part of learning the language. Changing what is in your head. You start to hear the language over time if you work with it long enough. I think that sometimes the metaphor of jazz as language is overdone. You can hear that a lot, but I think it's very valid and very helpful. Of course, it's not language like where there's strict, I don't know, denotation of what you're trying to say. I mean, I guess sometimes it is in music. You can have something that's very representational of something linguistic, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it's a language in that it has there are motifs and there are the vocabulary. There are musical motifs become the vocabulary that you process and you communicate with, and you throw out ideas within the style. Because a big, because what is improvisation if not communication? Usually with other people, but also with oneself, with the audience, but certainly with the bands that I play with, the small group jazz, we're communicating with each other. And it's not just a free for all of notes, although that's cool too. It's really, we're using language from the tradition and rearranging things and trying to play it in ways that we haven't done before. Someone will throw out an idea, and so it comes back and forth. And so, yes, all the transcribing, all the arranging really helps the writing. Writing is a big part of it. Wes wrote great tunes. John Coltrane wrote great tunes. They just, and yes, which are both beds for improvisation. The chord structures, but also you want to. I mean, Wes had really engaging melodies, and on the simpler side, is often and I don't mean simple, but just something kind of that people can get there. You think about West Coast blues is a pretty straightforward melody, but it engages people.
Mhm.
And so when is that, the Illinois Music Educators Association, they contacted me and they wanted some songs written on a certain bed. It's what we call rhythm changes. Are you familiar with rhythm changes?
Sure. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like the chords from I Got Rhythm, from Gershwin's I Got Rhythm. So they wanted a new melody over that for the kids to learn. And that for me, great. I mean, that's right up my alley. And so I wrote those. I wrote a few tunes based on rhythm changes for different levels and tried to adjust because they had like junior and senior, and so so they wanted the junior a little more accessible for a little bit less experienced, and the senior a little bit more experienced. But yeah, so I'm just using you know playing sounds that are in my head. But the reason they're in my head is because of the transcribing and the listening and working with those sounds, working with that language. Yeah,
Yeah, and that seems very valid. I mean, that's where all the writing is coming from, is something in somebody's head that is
I
being
think so.
captured. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. There's something too about captured and also just letting it blow through.
mhm.
It's like, yeah, it's not even, obviously you're a very prolific writer. You know all about this. And you were also, you write lyrics. What a concept. I don't write lyrics at all. It's all, for me, it's the melodies and the chords. I often start with In that situation, the chords were gonna be predetermined, right? Because it's part of rhythm changes. So what I would do is, I love to improvise, and improvise while recording. And that's like, "Oh, yeah, that's good." I can go back through. It's like, "Oh, I like that idea that came through. I like that one. I like this. Let me go back. Let me put this I'm gonna play this one again. That was really good. Let's see what that one leads to." And then improvise some more, take a bunch of passes. It's like, "Oh, okay, this is good. Okay, this should go to this, should go to this." You know? But when it comes to having to write the chords, I like to start with the drums.
Mm.
And so I'll have the drum track, and then I'll just work with different chords and see what comes through, see what I like in that moment, and then the melody. I mean, there are so many ways it can go, obviously, as
Right, right. Hey,
which first, but that's often drums do it for me. Drums to chords to melodies.
that's cool.
Once in a while, melodies to chords.
Sure. Wow, that's amazing. Now,
Well, Ben, you're amazing with all. I mean, how many tunes have you written, Tom? I mean,
oh,
1,000 more?
in various stages of existence, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I don't know how long ago it was. We were talking, and you're like, "Oh, that'd be a good song idea," and then boom, like, I don't know if it was that night or the next morning, you sent me a full song. So
well,
that was fantastic.
you were in like South Korea or yeah, South Korea or something. So
Yeah, I think so.
yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it was a good idea. A pigeon stole your chopsticks. And I was like, oh, that's a
Oh,
good
that's
yeah.
right, that's right. Yeah, that was okay, that was the same tour. That was so we played for a week in Korea, which was amazing, and we're headed back, actually. We played that was last fall, and it went so well in Korea, and they want us to come back now in end of July.
Cool.
And then we went from, Korea, we played at the Blue Note in, Beijing, which that was a trip. I loved it. Totally different experience. Uh, and then we went to Tokyo, and Tokyo was, I also loved it, and it was we had the least amount of gigs there and the most downtime, and yeah, that day I
Oh
went
yeah.
literally, I went to a, convenient I think it was either a 7-Eleven or something similar in the morning. I think, man was still sleeping or whatever. Maybe it was noon, I'm not sure, and I got some I got some food from there, and I was just sitting eating on the street, and the pigeon flew up, and, they were flying around. At one, I put my chopsticks down for a minute, and boom, took it, and they dropped it. He didn't abscond all the way, but he took it for about a foot.
Well, there's poetic license, so
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I think he was probably psyched when he grabbed it, thinking it was food, of
sure,
course, and
sure.
then realized, but of course it was done to me. I wasn't gonna be like, "Okay, put that in my mouth again," you know?
Right, right, right.
But, yeah, oh, man, such a great experience. I loved it.
Right, I can.
Uh,
Has going overseas like that has that like been an influence on even your playing? Being in a culture so exotic, or is it too? I mean, I don't know. Is it too hard to make? Something that different on so many levels. It's got to be hard to filter. But did that
mm,
influence your playing?
Influence my playing? Well, it's inspiring. I definitely want to it's like, keep growing, right? I just wanna it's like I just feel so lucky to get to share this stuff,
Yeah.
and, that sounds I mean, I hope that doesn't sound corny,
No, that's
but
awesome. That's
it's
reassuring.
so lucky, and it's like, well, I kinda wanna earn it more after the fact, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
The first time I played was, first time I led a band out of the country was in, Istanbul, and I remember I was playing at their kinda main jazz club, called, Nardis, which is also a, um, Miles Davis tune.
Ah.
And it's about half, when I remember asking them, like, "Is this tourists or locals?" And he said about half and half, because it's definitely a touristy area. I mean, there are a lot of tourists in Istanbul. It's
Yeah.
the, it's the crossroads, the middle, it's a between transition between Europe and Asia, and obviously the Middle East as well, and,
The only thing I know about
it's
Istanbul is that it was Constantinople
that's right. It sure was.
because
That's
of the
funny.
"They Might Be Giants" song.
It's so funny because in the '90s, I was listening to exactly 0 pop music, So I know nothing about 90s pop music, 0, because I had so much had my head in bebop and Wes
Right, right.
and other, and Train, and it was like, and so I know that song from like the Andrews Sisters or something, because I remember a history teacher singing that song, Mrs. Knowles. I had no idea that that was even a like, I would maybe sometimes sing that song referencing some song from the 40s, I guess, and
Sure.
people would know it. I'm like, "Oh, okay. Oh, you had that too, and you had that in your history class." It's like, no, it was a huge hit, I guess. I don't know from what I understand in the
That's
90s. I
quaint.
know it's quaint, it's cute, it's catchy. It's definitely catchy.
Yeah, see?
Yeah. Electable's a man, it's a really cool place on a lot of levels. But I remember playing it in Artists and just before the first night and just standing up there, it's like, I can't believe I'm playing in this I'm playing here, playing songs I wrote, It's like, this is it's so special. It's
Yeah, it's
so
mind-blowing.
my mind was blown. I'm
Yeah.
sitting there. It was I had an old friend out there, Yavuz, and we played, I did some trio, and then he also plays guitar, then he came up, we did 2 guitars, and we played a little duo, and then we played quartet with, guitar, organ, and drums. It was so fun. Oh my god.
Cool.
Yeah, but I just felt so lucky. I'm just sitting there like, "I can't
Oh,
believe this is
yeah.
happening," you know?
Yeah,
And,
that's
and
great.
it's a long process. I mean, again, some people can do that right away. I mean, looking at Rodney, 17 years old, played in, I don't even know,
And
5 continents or whatever, played around the world many times over with Dizzy. Some of us, it's a slow path, you know?
but
It's a
you
real slow
got there. You got
well,
there.
somewhere, I got
Yeah,
somewhere, and
right.
somewhere I wanna keep going for sure,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm there per se, but I did get to Istanbul and Asia, and I don't know from where from where, but it is fun.
Mhm.
You know, it's funny when started to play in Korea, before we went, great guy and agent, Heejin Lee, agent for Korea, he's like, "Now listen, jet lag's no joke at your age." He said I was like, "Damn, Heejin, I'm not that old." But he was right, because it was still like, it's a bear
And the
coming
second
back
thing he
13.
said was no rim shots.
That's right. That's right. He said,
You could
yeah,
go across the world, man.
I
No one wants a
wonder,
rim shot.
it's okay, we could go a lot of directions with that
I'm
one.
sorry, I did derailed that with a callback.
No, that's good. No, it's funny the crowd reactions in the different, cultures, like, in Korea, it's really effusive, like, they love jazz, over the top reactions, like, fantastic, like, when they feel it, they're
Yeah,
clapping and cheering, it's just I mean, just beautiful, like, spectacular. And then, he was interested in Beijing because I think because maybe they're a little more used to classical music, there was still clapping, but, and a great response, but it was l I think they didn't know about clapping after solo, some people did, but they would, and sometimes, because classical music, obviously, it's you don't clap between movements, right? And there are all
yeah,
these
yeah.
rules,
Wait till the end.
and so it was a little bit more like that, wait till the end, and then big applause, but I was like, "Oh, yeah." Koreans, they were a little bit more, the Korean audiences, I should say, were, a little more connected with the American experience of applauding between solos and cheering when you wanted to,
Yeah, yeah.
the Korean the Chinese audience, at least at the Blue Note in Beijing, and it's a massive country and I don't, could be different region to region and also night to night, but at least on the nights that we were playing at Blue Note, great response, but often they would, wait a little bit,
Right.
just to be
Right, right,
sure.
right.
So I thought that was great.
Very
I
cool.
loved it all.
So I have a question about I saw you just a few days ago with your trio and, there's y all drums, organ, and yourself on guitar, and you're playing songs, and then there's pockets for improvisation. Um, how how much is listening involved with the people that are supporting you? How much are they following you, and how much, uh, of it is sort of scripted and then you run with it?
Well, in terms of improvised, the improvisation, I would say very little is scripted. There might be a shout chorus or something, a figure or parts that are where we've we've written an arrangement where after we improvise, we'll go into a little ensemble piece that's but in general, it's really a great question about who's following, who's leading, what's going on there. I again, to go back to the language metaphor, it's almost like you've got someone, telling a story, not lecturing, because lecturing, I think, if you're talking about a lecture in a big lecture hall at college, there's very little feedback from or interaction from the people listening. It's just the person talking and you listen, take notes, okay. But it's not like that at all. It's more like a conversation, but it's a conversation where one person is telling the story, is leading the conversation at a given time. So the person who's leading at that moment, the soloist, um, just as when you're telling the story, someone might be listening to the story and say, "No way, wait, really?" You know, there is some interaction, or if
Hmm.
someone could say, "Wait," the person telling the story makes a reference to it was to Paris or something, and the guy was like, "Wait, Paris, Texas? No, no, Paris, France." Something where there's a little, "Can you clarify?" Or something like, "Wait, no way." Kind of get in there. There's a little back and forth, which will influence the story, right? The person say, "No, no, I'm talking about Paris, France, actually," and
Huh.
and you might even go on. That actually might lead to a little tangent. Wait, it, and that can happen in the conversation or telling a story. There are tons of tangents. They don't go. It doesn't go exactly the way you think it's going to go ahead of time. I think this is what's happening with the soloist. You're soloing, the band is listening for sure and interacting and throwing out ideas, ideas of support for sure, but also ideas to change where the story is going if they're feeling it. I
Is it
love
ever
playing
like
with.
a pitcher and catcher where the catcher is throwing signs, but you can still not shake them off?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's great. Yeah, I love that metaphor. Absolutely. Hey, I want this. Oh, actually, no, it's going to be this. And who makes the final decision about what pitch it's going to be?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
usually it's the soloist is in sort of in charge of where it's headed, but it's often not quite binary like that, where it's okay, there's only one decision to be made. It's usually kind of it's a little soft around the edges about the choices. It's like, oh, let's go this direction,
Hmm.
harmonically. Oh, yeah, that worked really well, let's keep doing that, you know? Someone will throw out an remember we're repeating forms a lot, whether it's 12 bar, a lot of people know about 12 bar blues, but there's also we were talking about rhythm changes, which is a 32 bar form. There are a lot of things that are 32 bar forms, but or 8 bars that repeats several times. And so there might for the we've never played it this way, but maybe Tom decides, Tom Waits is the organist I work with the most. He might throw out, he might decide just in the moment that we always play this song with this progression, but he wants to substitute because he was just hearing it and he came up with a new progression or related progression. My job, even though I'm soloing, is to hear that idea, is to hear that. It's like, oh, great. So now my story is going to go over a different chord progression than I thought. And that's a big part of when we're talking about transcribing and learning the language. If he plays a new chord progression, or a related progression. We call them substitutions sometimes. It can be small substitutions or very large chord substitutions. My job is to hear that and know what it is by by sound because he's not going to call it out. Hey, we're going to do A flat seven. No, he doesn't. He just does it, and it's supposed to hear that. And then when I'm soloing, I'll react and then solo over that chord progression. So I'm still leading, but he absolutely changed the narrative with that idea that he had. Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a lot of back and forth with the soloist generally leading, but it's not like a lecture or a bully thing where it's like, "It's gonna be like this, everyone listen to me and support me." No, it's definitely a dialogue.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah, what a great question.
So as we will move to wrap up a little here,
Sure.
um, I I have something said to Jazz Guitar Today in front of me
Ah,
in an
oh my
interview
gosh.
they did where you said you didn't want to sound like Wes Montgomery, but you wanted to take that inspiration and do your own thing.
Oh, yeah.
How successful do you think you've been in being your own player, yet
Yeah.
paying your homage to Wes Montgomery?
Yeah, well, how successful it's it's a process for sure. And even when you say like, what is your own thing, that changes over the years. When I think about my heroes, how their sound changed. Some of the heroes sounded like themselves the whole way through their whole career, just the same sound, great, wonderful. And some changed a lot over the years. Looking at just we were talking so much about Rodney Jones, he sounds very different now than he did when I was studying with him. And I
Mhm.
love that. I love that. It's beautiful. Obviously, look at Coltrane, look at Miles, look at how they changed.
Right,
Look at the
right.
Beatles. Look at the Beatles in the course of
Yeah.
what is that, 9 years?
Yes, they have.
That's very inspiring to change. But how I certainly don't sound like Wes. I hope that it sounds like I've listened to Wes. I would hope to be a part of the tradition. I hope, in that it's like it's sound I would hope that it sounds informed by Wes. I mean, if it doesn't, that's okay too, but I spent so much time with Wes and Grant Green and Jim Hall and George Benson and these and my heroes. I would love if it sounds inspired by them. But again, that's it's kinda not my choice, how it's
Mm,
gonna sound
right,
in
you're
that in
kinda
some
just
ways.
you're just letting it happen. I mean, it's not
Ideally, yes.
yeah.
Ideally, yes. Work on the skills, work on the technique, learn the language, study, and get out of the way and see what comes out. So,
I will say that
yeah.
in the last year when I've been listening to I mean, I haven't listened to Wes, but I've been listening to your, love letter to Wes,
Mm,
and then
yeah.
just today, I was thinking, I should give a listen to Wes
Yeah.
and do a sonic comparison,
Yes. Oh,
and
did you do it?
yeah, yeah, and I think I mean, your I would say your playing is a little and it might be the up because of the recording improvements over the years is fuller, but he seemed a little more staccato in like you know, h
Oh.
his emphasis on lines were like boom, 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 and you're more of a flow to it, but it's, because 'cause I'm specifically thinking of, what's the song he closes with? West Coast,
Oh, yeah,
uh,
West Coast Blues.
Blues. Yeah, I mentally, I was listening to Wes's version of that and thinking about how you played that the other night,
Yeah.
and and they you clearly, they're, like, in the same ballpark, but the subtleties, definitely, I hear the player is a different person, so it's cool, you know?
Mm. Yeah, that's I mean, well, first of all, same ballpark, it's gotta be a big ballpark for me to be like, I'm not it would take, a lot of lifetimes, I think, for me to get in his orbit, but that level of greatness, but, I'm really glad I'm really happy to hear you can hear the personality or that you hear the person, because that's a big thing about Wes, I think, is that because by all accounts, not just the video, but when I interviewed Harold Mayburn and everyone I've ever talked to about Wes that knew him, or anything I've ever read or heard, is talk about him being a beautiful, warm human being. And I hear that in his music so
Mm.
clearly,
Mhm, mhm.
and it would be wonderful if, through this process, keep working and if you can hear whatever I am, you know,
Right.
flawed, good at times, flawed human being. But if you can hear me in music, that would be wonderful. I think that's a really nice, I don't know if it's a goal or just I don't know. It's lovely to hear that. It's lovely to hear the person. Yeah, and I'm glad to hear you're not saying like, "Oh, yeah, sound like Wes." I mean, I can't sound, exactly like Wes, and it's
Right, right.
I don't mind that, you
Yeah.
know? I don't mind, I don't think it would be I don't think the world necessarily needs a Wes clone that sounds like 50% of Wes or even 99%
Right.
of Wes, I mean,
Because
Wes has done it.
yeah, that's what exactly what I was gonna say. Wes has already been Wes.
Yeah, and none quite like that.
Yeah, it just popped in my head. In May, I went to see Sammy Hagar's tribute to Eddie Van Halen, and he pulled Joe Satriani in to
Oh,
play
right.
Eddie's parts, and
Yeah,
Joe
tell
did
me
a
about that.
Joe did a great job of playing the the music that Eddie composed, but at the same time, he sounded like Joe Satriani. So
Oh, that's
it was
beautiful.
like I think it's similar to what you and Wes, that relationship where you know the notes and the chords and what goes where, but you can't help but actually sound like yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, man, what a beautiful thing to say and to think. I'm really glad you saw that. I know how much you loved, Eddie, the genius of Eddie Van Halen,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm really glad to hear Joe did that, was able, because obviously, that guy can play anything on guitar he wants, and I'm glad to hear that it still sounded like him even though he was playing that very specific music,
Yeah.
that very specific tech was he was doing all the technique, all the tapping, he was doing all that,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
but it still sounded like Joe.
He knew the things that he had to play, and then there were moments where he would just kinda extrapolate, and it worked. It was perfect, so,
That's great. I'm
yeah.
so glad to hear that.
Yeah, I think you do something similar, because
Oh,
you know the music, you've written it down, you've meticulously gone over it, so, I think it's a good comparison.
thanks. Thanks, Tom, that's really touching, thank you. I hope to I'm trying my hardest to live up to that. That's really great.
Oh, yeah,
Keeping
you are definitely world class, so you
Oh, come
belong
on.
on
Thank you, man.
you belong on that wall of fame in our high school. We gotta get you
Oh, really?
I'm gonna break in and put a plaque up for you
That's
right next
amazing. Yeah, with, who else is on that?
right
Is
next
it
to
like Ray
Hemingway, right next to
Hemingway and Ray Kroc?
yeah, you're gonna be I'm gonna put you between Hemingway and Kroc when I break in.
That's great, and then I'll break in and put you I'm gonna put you next to me now because I wanna be buds on that wall. We'll
There
be
you
wall
go.
buds. I don't know, I hope that's not a thing. I hope that's not
It
some
is.
slang that I'm wall buds.
Be careful when you Google that, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'll just leave that. I don't wanna I'll embarrass myself.
Right. Alright, well, Tim, I think this is a good point to wrap up. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you
taking
for
the
having
time
me. I
to
loved it. It
talk.
was so fun.
Yeah, so, I mean, knowing how great a person you are, I was looking forward to this interview for a while, so really glad we were able to make it work.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. As soon as you said that, it's like, yes, of course, I would love to do that because this is pretty similar to conversations we'll just have generally. So,
Right, we could be I could be chatting with you between sets right at this point at a
yeah,
bar, so,
absolutely.
yeah.
But it's nice to have, say, it's a focused time. No
Yeah,
distractions.
yeah,
So it's
exactly.
really great. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks,
Alright,
Tom.
thanks, Tim.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Yep.
Bye bye.